Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of Let's Rebuild Allure Hills with me, Blue Spirit. In this episode, as mentioned in the previous one, we are going to work some more on the San Vicente Boulevard, more specifically to the left side of the main street when entering the park, and we're going to finish that this episode, so I will see you after this cut. Before we going on to the main street itself, I wanted to try out, as mentioned in the previous episode I believe, I wanted to try out a carousel in the middle of the square itself. I think it's a nice feature and as you can see it's going to be surrounded with some foliage, so you can see the carousel itself, but it's also a little bit hidden throughout the foliage, and that makes it work, I believe. So in the beginning of this episode we are going to work on that carousel, finish it up a little bit. As you can see, I already did some planning and laying out the streets and whatnot, but the fencing etc. still needs to be done, so we're going to do that in this one, in this segment of the video. And what I try to do is make it a little bit fancy with the fences around it. I wanted to not be just a standard carousel or something, because the whole street is somewhat fancy in a sense. It's also looking a bit different than your normal street. It resembles the Los Angeles 1920s, 1930s, as explained in the previous episode, and of course how the actual Buena Vista Street in California Adventure looks. So if you just plop down in the carousel and just be done with it, something with the in-game fences and stuff like that, it's just not what it feels, or what I believe it should feel like. So I try to be a little bit fancy with it and just feel like it should belong there, and just not something that is randomly plopped down somewhere, which I believe I did, to be honest. When an end product is shown in the final part of this video with the cinematic shots, it's not finished. The foliage needs some work, but I think it's the idea that works out perfectly for this area. The carousel itself isn't decorated or themed like the other rides from the game are, so it works out just to be a generic little thing, and the theme that it has is working out, in my opinion, good for this area. So I'm happy with it, and happy how it turned out. So what you will see me do this episode is, as mentioned, I'm going to finish off the left part of the main square, the San Vicente Boulevard, and that the still remaining buildings that need to be made are the locker room, the locker depot, and of course the Sepulveda toilet building, or it is a toilet building, but it's called the Sepulveda, and it has some kind of meaning. I don't really know what it is. It's just a toilet building with a name put on it. I don't know. Anyway, it's just a nice little building, and this was a bit of a challenge for me, because in the original Allure Hills I didn't complete the building itself. It's something that I'd started working on, but I wasn't really satisfied with. So I didn't complete the building itself. So I had to build it completely off scratch, and really go off of the footage or the pictures I found on the internet of it. And in the end, I think it was a nice building as we start working on the locker depot. I think it's turned out nice, and I think it's one of the better buildings I built so far in the park. But it took some time to build, and you will see in the time lapse when we start working on it that I cut a lot of it out of the time lapse. I think that's for the better, because there was so much trial and error and so much things that I did build but later on got deleted because it didn't really feel right, or didn't feel the way I wanted to feel. So and the same goes for all the other buildings that I'm going to build in the main street, and maybe the rest of the park even, that there will be some cuts in the time-lapse itself, and especially towards more difficult things to build, like arches and stuff like that. I'm going to cut out of it some big parts, because first of all, it's not interesting to watch something that's going to be deleted anyway. So that's one reason I cut some parts of it, and also because I believe that not everything is as interesting to watch yet, even if it's going to stay in the final product. So yeah, just a heads up that there will be things which are shown that look different in the final product, and also that you won't see me actually build, but you will see in the cinematic shots at the end. So yeah, but just to catch up with what I'm building right now, I'm building and almost finished actually with the locker building. It's just a small little thing, not really special. I did this in the original park as well. And it's just a small little building. It's not really much to it. It's just the standard lockers in it, and I didn't build those myself. I got them from the workshop. I think Deke FTW made them, if I'm correct, and he did a great job with them. And you could find them on the workshop by just looking for lockers, and there are a lot of lockers on the workshop. So yeah, be sure to check that out. If you need some more and don't want to build them yourself like me do. So it's not much really on it actually, and yeah, it's not much to talk about. What I want to talk about actually is something that I have been talking about a little bit in a previous episode, which is the schedule for the series. As mentioned, I'm going to stay a couple of episodes in this park, or in this area of the park, the main square, and I want to finish that before going on with the actual park itself, and that's because I want to finish something before starting going to another project, and something I did in the previous park, but also I started new areas but I wasn't really inspired by anything, and that didn't work out completely well. So I want to finish one thing before going on to another. And in the meantime, you see me building on the toilet building itself, which I will explain and talk more about in a second. But what I want to do with the episodes coming. In this episode, of course, we are going to finish the left side of Main Street, with this building being its final building. Then the next episode, we are going to start working on the right part of the Main Street. When entering the park, of course. So we've got the 5 and dime in there and stuff like that, and that's going to be started in the next episode. And episode 4 we will finish that part and maybe lay out some more areas in the park and do some planning, etc. I'm not really sure how much time I need for the finishing the street itself, so I'm not really sure. And then the 5th episode is going to be the Carfway Circle Feeder. I'm planning on doing an entire episode on that, because it's one of the bigger builds in this main street, and I want to get it right. So yeah, maybe I will try to do a live build in there, because it's somewhat a special episode, and especially a special build. So that might happen, I don't really know. But so just you have a nice idea of what I'm going to do with the series for the coming episodes. And then from episode 6 and forward, I will probably head on to a new area and work on some different themes and buildings, and maybe even a coaster or something, because I built a coaster once, the Flight of the Hippogriff in the original park, but that was just a small kiddie coaster, and it was basically a copy of a real building, so of a real coaster, I mean. So maybe it would be nice to start off with a original coaster or anything. So maybe that we'll give that a try in episode 6. I don't really know, but anyway, as you can see, I already started building the toilet building, and it's one of the bigger buildings in the main street, and definitely the most detailed one, I believe. It looks quite nice, and I'm happy with the results, even though, as I said, it was a lot of trial and error. And at first I was like, okay, I'm going to build an interior for the toilets, which sounds insane, because why do that? But I found something on the workshop, and I don't remember what it was, but somebody actually built an interior for a toilet, which was really impressive, and I thought, okay, it would be nice if I tried that as well, especially since I want to build interiors in the main street. Not all of them, of course, but I wanted to try out at some. So that was an idea that I had, and at the end I finished the building itself, and I was looking at it, and because you can see that I actually built the space for where the interior was going to go, and looking at it in the end, I was like, okay, nah, that's not gonna happen. That's just too much detail, which will go unnoticed. And but it was a nice idea actually, and that made, or actually the idea, because I had that idea, it was that I had to really limit myself in the details in the arch areas and stuff like that, which made me keep that interior in mind, so I wouldn't go full detail and just put beams and stuff through the walls, and really keep that in mind, because that also helps with building it. And I hear some people complain, or not really complain, talk about doing interiors, but they struggle with it because they have a lot of clipping objects inside the building, and there are two ways to deal with that. Either way, you try to not have clipping objects, and the other one is to just make a fake interior. That sounds a bit weird, but I'll explain this in one of the coming episodes where I attempt one, because the Five and Dime shop will be a gift shop in this park. I believe it was in the previous park as well, but I didn't have an interior for it there, which I want to try out in this park. But the area, or the dimension of it, the area in it, is a bit small, so I might do a fake interior in there. Might do a real interior in there, I'm not really sure. So I will explain that some more in the future, especially with some other builds. I will try to do some interiors, maybe even make a series out of interiors, where I just build the interior and not much else. But yeah, I'm not really sure what's going to go on. Anyway, the build itself is just a toy building, but it also has an ATM in front of it, which I built off camera. It was kind of a struggle, which is why I didn't record anything of it. And but it's a big feature in this build actually, and it turned out pretty good. One problem that I had with this build actually was that it was quite hard to do it, because as you can see, this archway was kind of a struggle, because there is this staircase which is overhanging the actual building itself, so, and there is an archway on top of that, but it was kind of a struggle to do that, and, and because I tried to be as close to the original as possible, and especially with all the dimension and scale and stuff, but it just didn't work out the way that it looked in real life. And I think that's okay in the end, because the building itself is still great, and in the end it looks really cool, even though it's a little bit too brown on the colors, so I might change that. But I wanted to get as close as possible, and as you can see over here, the arch did hit the original arch of the building itself, where the woman's sign is, and so I had to redo that a couple of times, and I think I just gave up on it and stopped recording, and got back on it a couple of days later. But or actually, this was the final thing. I don't know. It was kind of a struggle, and that's one thing that I wanted to do. To point out that when you're trying to work with these windows as walls, it can be kind of a struggle, especially if you're a perfectionist like me and want to try out everything that you can. It can be a bit annoying sometimes, and especially for the poly count and the FPS. If you're doing an entire park out of this, it can be devastating for your computer. But unfortunately, it didn't mind. That isn't the problem with my computer, actually. I think my computer is decent enough to make an entire park. Or at least, I downloaded Kawadi Beach, and that's a massive park. That's really a massive park with a lot of details and stuff like that. And it runs fine on my computer, actually, even though the FPS is a bit slow. So yeah, I think that this park will be safe, or at least I don't have to make multiple files for just one park. I don't know why I say that, but yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling about it a little bit. But yeah, I'm just finishing up the archway, which I got satisfied with in a little bit. And then continue on working on the roof, because most of the building itself is finished, and Actually, the roof was one of the biggest things for this, which I wasn't really sure of, because the ATM tower itself and the tower which I'm going to build in the end of the video were custom. The roofs are custom over there, and I thought, okay, I could do that for the entire building. But then I thought that we have these small little roof sections, and they were nice. And I think these are going to be the roofs of the entire build. Of course, I had to go with the tower and the ATM spire tower. I don't know. Those two parts of the building needed to be custom roofed, because, of course, it's just not possible with the in-game roof pieces to do that. But it was a nice contrast to have, and because it's just not that slanted, the roof, you don't really see it from the ground perspective. So I thought, okay, would be why spend all that polies and objects just to do that. And yeah, that's basically it. But the building itself in a finished version, which we'll see in the cinematic shots at the end, it comes really close, or at least in my opinion, comes really close to the original building in California Adventure, and I'm really proud of it, and never imagined succeeding in it, or getting this close and being this happy with it. And yeah, so, and the next struggle, of course, was adding some details. And if you look at pictures of the original building, you will see this mural mosaic thing above the woman entrance, or woman toilets. And of course I tried my attempt at it, and it just didn't work out, and I'm way too perfectionist for that. So I tried like 10 times to get it right, and just, okay, I'm happy with this result, and that's it. So I cut a lot of footage of that, of course, and basically went to the tower, which was something that I didn't try in the original park. So it was kind of a struggle, especially with this spire. It's just a small little spire, and I wanted to use the same technique as on the ATM in front of it, but for some reason it didn't work out. And then just later on thought, okay, let's just copy the spire from there and use that technique and just be okay with subtle changes. And but it worked out in the end, and especially with the foliage around it, which we'll see me place down in a couple of minutes. I'm really happy with the results, and okay with that. But that's basically all the time that I'm having for this video, unfortunately. If you liked what you see and want to see some pictures of it and hear some more stories about it and the background of this boulevard itself, please visit Shy Guy's World. There are some awesome creators out there, and I also have a topic over there where you can see some pictures of it. Also, let me know what you think of this video down in the comments below or via Twitter, and be sure to subscribe and follow me on all the channels to catch all the latest news and information, and maybe some previews. But yeah, that's basically all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.